Hello, I am Michelle with two L's, and I am one half of Force of Light Entertainment. Natalie is not with us today. She'll be back next week. But filling in for Natalie, I have our other sibling, well, our only other sibling, our brother Michael. Michael, good to have you.
Hello, good to be here. I've made several appearances now.
Yeah, well, this is your second Boba Fett appearance.
Right, right.
Yes. So we will be discussing reviewing chapter 3 of the book of Boba Fett. And you guys know that up until this point, I have not been a fan of the show at all. I thought the first episode was bad. I thought the second episode was really bad. So, what did I think of this third episode? I thought it was an improvement. That's just kind of my initial thoughts. It was definitely to me the most interesting. Michael, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I did see. I actually thought the second was an improvement from the first.
Man, I
I
just couldn't
didn't
deal
think
with
it
all
was
the
great by
flashbacks.
any means, but I did think it was a little better. And then this was definitely a step up. Now, if I wanted to be really critical of it, there's definitely some things that I could be, but overall,
Oh,
at
yeah.
least they're starting to move the story forward.
Yes, and we'll get into some of those things because this is when I say this is an improvement, I'm not saying that this still is not like comparable to me to The Mandalorian at this point, as far as its level of enjoyability. But it was a lot better than the first two episodes, which I did not really enjoy at all. Because in this episode, we finally, one of my critiques of the last two episodes has been we spent so much time in flashbacks. And I get it, guys. I get they're doing a rebirth type story with Boba Fett of how he's this different man than when we knew him from the original trilogy after, I guess, his Sarlacc experience and then be with the Sand People. I get all that. But I didn't need like 30, a total of like 50 minutes with the Sand People that I got the first two episodes if you combine them. So I was very happy in this episode because with them doing that, it did feel like the main story was progressing. And that was my main complaint. So finally, in the third episode, it feels like the story is progressing, like the present day story is progressing.
Yeah, I think that what they did in the first couple episodes, like if there was 12 episodes to work with, you
Yeah,
could have had that much time devoted kind of collectively to it. But when there's only, is there going to be eight? Is that what it is?
I think seven.
Seven. Yeah. I mean, when there's seven, that was a lot of time given to those. But as far as this one, at least there was not much flashback. At least it's starting to move forward and it's kind of tying in some of the stuff that, he experienced with the Sand People into the present day story. And so it's kind of beginning to make sense why they set up some of those past narratives.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Which I knew it would be. Is just it was done in a way that was just kind of boring to me. I mean, that's just kind of the bottom line.
Yeah.
I will have to say this is about to sound terrible. It's sad that the Sand People died, but inside I said, "Thank God," because now I don't have to deal with the Sand People anymore. It was like, good gosh, can we just get away from the Sand People, like, and move forward? At which point, now they're going to have to. I think at least those flashbacks are over because the Sand People tragically are no more. Um,
Yeah, there's a theme that's clearly beginning to emerge that I didn't see coming with a Boba Fett character, but it's like this theme that Boba Fett is this man that's out to like set the wrongs right.
Yes, yeah, that's why I say it's kinda like this rebirth story, where he
Mm.
emerged from the Sarlacc a different man. I don't
Mhm.
know. That's kinda what we're getting, and, you got some cool things in this episode. Again, you got more just straight up the present day story. You got some Fennec Shan action. You you got the Wookiee that kinda just snuck up on Boba Fett. My gosh, though, in that fight, I was like, I feel like he just broke his back. I
The
mean, that
back to
Wookiee
tank. If he spent a little less time in the back to tank, he might have seen it coming.
I mean, the Wookiee was just slinging him around like a rag doll. It was like, I don't know if the Bacta tank can save that. I mean, my gosh. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, Wookiees are strong enough, we know, to like snap necks and tear limbs, and I mean, it just about broke Bubba's back, or Boba's. But yeah, so we got some more interesting stuff, but it kind of leads me into some things that, and this may just be a Disney problem because The Mandalorian was very kid friendly, very. It had enough compelling of a story to me and interest that it didn't bother me. Where with this, it's like they're trying to tell this crime boss story, but they're trying to do so in a Disney-fied, like G-rated way, and it's just not. It's still not. Again, I like this episode a lot better, but that aspect is still not working for me.
He's a crime boss that like wants justice for the underpaid. He's a crime boss that wants the underworld to kind of have equality, which is kind of weird, because the guy
Yeah.
that they stole from, he was like, "No, you're ripping people off, and these this gang deserves, their equal share or whatever." He didn't say exactly that, but it is a crime boss that like seemingly, this is one of the things that if I really wanted to criticize, it's a crime boss that literally no one would be afraid of.
No one. And I think Fennec Shan kind of keeps kind of hinting at that. But yes, like he's like a nice crime boss.
But
It's like
he
if
calls
Tony
himself
Soprano was nice.
he calls himself something else. What is it that he's referring to himself as? Like he's not just a crime boss, he's also this. He keeps referring to himself as something. Do you know what that is?
I can't remember. Because my
Yeah.
mind just gets fixed on, like, again, like you said, like he's not a very good crime lord.
Mhm.
Because you kind of got to be a bad person to be a good crime lord.
Because remember the gang of like robotically enhanced young people,
Yeah.
they referred to him as basically like a crime boss, and he was like, "Well, I'm not just that. I'm the something." And he referred himself as something that was almost kind of like a magistrate or a lord over a territory or something to that effect.
Okay, well, that would make a little more sense if he's just kind of more that, but I mean, him as a crime lord, it's just not really working when he's like nice.
Yeah.
So if he wants to be kind of like a politician, a magistrate, or a ruler, that makes a little more sense, but not like this nice version of the Godfather. That just doesn't really, I don't know, that doesn't really click. And then I wanted to bring up too, because again, this is just a small critique, guys. Again, I enjoyed this episode the most of any of them. Let me show you. Let me pull this up. Okay, so the speeders, like the colored speeders, not working for me in Star Wars.
Yeah, they're kind of. I've never seen speeders like that. They're like kind of retro, like our world speeders.
Yeah, and they're kind of like so bright, it looks like they're straight out of the Power Rangers.
Yeah,
It's like the Power Rangers showed up in Star Wars.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
know
I
this
did
is
notice
a
that
small
that
critique.
that was a little odd.
Yeah, and even their clothing, because Star Wars has such a specific look, and even their clothing to me was a little off. I mean, it was fine for some of the comic Star Wars, but it was a little off for live action, in my opinion.
Well, and you've got the guy that works for the mayor.
Yes.
You would think he would have a little more exotic type of speech and everything, but he just kind of talks like a normal guy. Whereas when we've seen guys with the long flowing things like that before, it was Jabba's assistant, and he had a very kind of exotic, foreign
Yes.
language that he spoke with, an accent. But this guy that works for the mayor, he just kind of talks like a guy from, Maryland or something.
He really does. Um, and then another critique, guys, that I have, not trying to trash it, just bringing out I bring out what I liked and didn't like. The rain course thing. Okay, that can be cute and kind of good, but it's kind of, let me pull up. I wrote down the quote. He said, Rancors are mostly peaceful unless threatened. And it's kind of like, so we now have the sand people, we've got the Rancors, like everything's just misunderstood in this
Yeah,
version of Star Wars. And
yeah.
it's like, can we ever just have bad people or bad guys or monsters, as which the Rancor is supposed to be?
Well, I picked up on that as well. It's, the theme of like everything has this kinder, gentler side. It's like, why does the Rancor need to be nice? And in my opinion, that's not a great development of where you can go with this story, to like spend time with
No.
Boba wanting to learn how to ride it. And the guy's like, that's going to take lots and lots of discipline. And Boba's like, we're starting today. But I
We'll
mean,
probably get a whole episode of this.
yeah, I mean, that doesn't compel me to want that little plot device to go anywhere. I don't really care to see that at all.
I bet they're setting that up so he can ride it in town, almost like Aladdin coming into town. Like, that's what I see that
Yeah,
going,
maybe
where
so.
that's going.
Maybe so.
But yeah, it is just, again, guys, it's kind of the Disney find of things that it worked with the Mandalorian in that story. It never bothered me. It was a little more kiddish, but it's like Star Wars has always there's a difference between being family friendly and being like kid friendly.
Yeah.
And they're almost going to kid friendly instead of just family friendly like Star Wars was.
So, well, I think Star Wars has shades of maturity.
Yes.
And this is missing basically those shades of maturity. It's just kind of like a pop show for younger fans. Like I feel kind of bad for the older fans, like my
Who love
age
Boba Fett.
and older, that love Boba Fett, because they're not really getting anything that's catering to them. They're clearly catering this to a younger thing. For me personally, this series is a bonus. So like, I'm not going to be too
Yeah.
picky about it one way or the other. I think it's fine. I think it's moving forward pretty decent, and it's starting to become relatively entertaining. But for the hardcore Boba fans, I mean, feel kind of bad for them. I suppose I'm assuming that they feel similar.
Yes. Yeah, I just wish in the future moving forward, and maybe it's just because it's on Disney Plus, but it's like Star Wars, again, the original trilogy and even the prequels, they're very family friendly, but there is that maturity that's in them. They're not just a kid show. And I wish some of the things in here to me are just a little bit too kiddish for my liking.
Would you say that Star Wars Rebels had a little more emotional depth than what we've seen so far out of Boba Fett?
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed Star Wars Rebels, and of course, they had their kinda just filler TV episodes, but, I mean, then again, you got, like, 18 to 20 per season,
Right.
um, but it did. It actually had I don't ever see this, like, getting anywhere close to some of the episodes of Rebels that had actual emotional weight to the story.
Right.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Anything else that you enjoyed or critiques that you had of this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it'll be interesting to see where this battle's going to go, because he really doesn't have a big army so far. He doesn't have too
Yeah.
many people helping him. It's kind of a ragtag tag group, and so I think it'll be fun to watch it go forward. On the flip side, it would be nice. I was going to say grit, like there needs to be a little more grit, but
Yes,
I
it
think with Star
does.
Wars, it's not so much grit, it's the emotional weight. There's just not been
Yes.
any weightiness to it. And hopefully, maybe that'll come at some point. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I agree with that. Another thing I just thought of, guys, another thing kinda goes with what I'm saying of it being a little too kiddish for me, is it's like, the twins, the Hutts, they show up, and for starters, it's like, 1, how did you even know he defeated the guy you sent so fast? Like, how did you just know that? You just kind of arrived. Um, and then secondly, they are just like, "Yes, we tried to kill you, but we're good now." Again, it's not realistic in a mob or gangster type world. That's just not how that's done.
That was a really strange resolution for the big bad Wookiee. That like
Yes. Yeah,
it's
just
like,
like, "Bye. See
yeah,
ya."
yeah,
Like, "So long."
mm,
Yeah, it was odd, and you kinda thought and maybe the Wookiee comes back and helps Boba Fett.
yeah. Boba Fett needs some warriors on his side. I mean, he's not got a lot of help at this point.
I mean, I could kinda see this maybe being a case where the Wookiee recognize I mean, kind of like Chewie with Han, where the Wookiee recognizes Boba Fett spared his life, and maybe he feels like he owes him a debt at that point, and
Right.
helps him out, just as Boba Fett did with The Mandalorian.
Right.
So I could see him coming back at some point and being helpful to Boba Fett because, like you said, he is going to need some help.
Yep.
But yeah. So guys, that's kind of our thoughts on this episode, chapter 3 of the book of Boba Fett. What did you think? Again, I like this. This has been my favorite episode so far. There's just still something lacking for me fully. And of course, just some nitpicks I have with it of just, I feel like there needs to be a little more maturity in some of these shows. But what do you guys think? Share your thoughts below. And thank you, Michael, for coming on.
Yep. Thank you for
And
having me.
I will have Michael's YouTube channel linked in the description below. But yes, if you are not yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also give the video a thumbs up. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be a force of light. All right. Bye, guys.